So assertiveness is the communication style. It is the preferred communication style because it is the one that best maintains your relationships as a result of it. And it sits alongside the other communication styles of passive and aggressive. But it is the one where you get the most respect because you're respecting the other person and you're also respecting yourself. And the good news is it's a skill. It's not something that you're necessarily born with. It can be learned. It is a skill. And as such, quite often we learn it from role models as we're growing up. And I've talked before about my family and being quite traditional. So my mum, a wonderful mum, her role in the house was not necessarily to be assertive, and she lacked a bit of self-esteem. So I never really had an assertive role model for me growing up. And so therefore it's something I've had to learn for myself. And I think that's true of quite a lot of people. So it's a skill that needs to be learned. And it sits on this sort of scale of at one end we have passive, at the other we have aggressive, and then around the middle is assertiveness. And it doesn't mean it's the only communication style to use, but it very much is the sort of preferred one, as I said, to maintain relationships. So passive communication means what it says, which is that you accept what other people say, you don't talk back, you don't go into conflict, you just keep your ideas to yourself and your thoughts and feelings. So the problem with that is that once you don't speak up for how you're feeling or what your opinion is, you feel like you're swallowing down your voice, and you can be swallowing down quite a bit of resentment as well. If somebody's aggressive with you and you decide not to speak back, you can swallow down that frustration and resentment. And that can sometimes come out at other times. It can come out, when you least want it to, when you get to the point where you can't hold any more in and it just goes blur. And also it's really driven by this nice girl conditioning that we've been talking about. Hi, Marta. This nice girl conditioning, which is what holds us back from worrying about whether we'll upset somebody, worrying about if we get into conflict and how that will feel. So when we're in that passive communication style, we're not speaking up for what we think and what we believe, which means that we're not valuing ourselves. And that can be a real knock to your self-esteem if you keep not valuing your voice and not letting it be heard. So that's the passive end of the scale. At the aggressive end of the scale, you've obviously got somebody who goes very much on emotion, so reacts immediately, full of emotion, and it comes across perhaps quite rudely, quite direct, very pushy, and it can almost be verbally abusive at times. So that sort of person is usually coming from a place where they want to be right or they want to win. So maybe they've been criticised, or maybe they disagree with something and they want to forcefully put their point to demonstrate that actually they're right and they should be listened to. Now, passive communication is known as the you're okay, I'm not okay style, because the other person is quite happy, they've spoken up for whatever they wanted, and you aren't okay because you haven't voiced what you feel. So aggressive communication is known as the I'm okay, you're not okay, because you've spoken up aggressively and given your point of view, but the other person isn't being listened to or isn't getting a chance to say what they want to. So again, that aggressive behaviour that is very much emotion driven is going to have a bad effect on the relationship you have with that person going forward. There is another kind, which is the passive aggressive. So we've got the passive on one side and the aggressive on the other. And this sort of person will start off by meekly accepting what's said and not voicing what they really think. They will behave as if everything's fine on the outside, but underneath it, there's that frustration and resentment that they've swallowed down. So it kind of seeps out in the passive aggressive. It leaks out in various ways. So if you've ever been in a queue in a shop for something, and the person in front of you is taking absolutely ages, being really slow, and you're getting really frustrated, but you don't say anything. The passive aggressive aspect can leak out then, and it can be, the rolling of the eyes, the tutting, the looking at other people around you. So the aggressive behavior is coming out, but not verbally. So that's a passive aggressive type behavior, and that's almost the worst of both of them. I'm not okay, you're not okay, because you're feeling bad, and the other person is probably picking up on some of those non-verbals and feeling bad themselves. So all three of those are not ideal. It doesn't mean you can't ever use them. You sometimes want to be passive and use passive communication, because that's a choice that you make. But the more ideal way is to use assertiveness, because assertiveness is the I'm okay, you're okay. We're both in a respective situation, so everybody's happy. And assertiveness is something that is important to use in lots of different situations. It doesn't have to be just used when you're with an aggressive person, but in any situation at all where you want your voice or your opinion to be heard, it's going to be recognized as building a good relationship. You're going to be getting your point genuinely heard, as well as the other person. So that's briefly the 4 different types of communication. And behind assertiveness is you need to understand what your rights are. As an assertive person, and as anybody on this planet, you have certain rights. And this that I'm just going to share with you, hopefully, is a document that says all the different rights that you have as a person, regardless of whether you're right or wrong, and regardless of whether can you see it?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, good. Okay, so that's your Bill of Assertive Rights that applies to you and to everybody else. So I have the right to be the judge of what I do and what I think. So nobody else has the right to judge you. They do, but they don't have that right. I have the right to offer no reasons and excuses for my behavior. So if I want to say no, I don't have to give lots of reasons and excuses why. The right to refuse to be responsible for finding solutions to other people's problems, which we sometimes get drawn into and feel we should. The right to change my mind, to make mistakes, to say I don't know, and to make my own decisions, to say I don't understand, to say no without feeling guilty. The right to be miserable or cheerful. The right to be illogical in my decisions. Yeah, that's definitely me. The right to set my own priorities. And the right to be myself without having to act for other people's benefit. Now, I'll attach that to the email coming out this evening, so you've got a copy of that. But do any of those surprise you or make you think I really should be standing up for that right of mine?
No, I mean, it sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
It sounds reasonable.
It sounds reasonable. It's sometimes quite difficult to actually stick to them or believe.
Yeah.
So on paper, they do sound reasonable, don't they? Absolutely. Sometimes it's worth reminding yourself of them, though. No, I don't need to feel guilty about that, or no, I don't need to give an explanation. I have the right to do that. Okay, the other document I'll send you on your email is this assertiveness questionnaire. So it just gives you an understanding of where on assertiveness you sit in terms of certain behaviours. So you look at each situation and you score it 1 to 4, depending on how comfortable you feel. And it just highlights a little bit for you where you are assertive already and where you find it a bit uncomfortable to be assertive. Okay. Right. So moving on to the different types of behaviours and assertiveness. So to demonstrate the different types of behaviours, I'm going to introduce you to 4 ladies. And those ladies are Doormat Dawn, who is passive, aggressive Anna, who's obviously aggressive, passive-aggressive Pauline Ann, and the lovely assertive Amy. So those 4 ladies demonstrate those different characters. And to give you an example of how it works, I'll use one outside of work. So imagine you've just come home from work, you've not eaten, it's been a long day, a tough day. You come in, husband's sat in the kitchen watching the TV, kids are on their devices, and you walk in and the kitchen's a mess and nobody's even thought about a meal for later. So, depending on the different communication style, the different mindset you're in, you may use who knows what communication style. So imagine if Doormat Dawn walks in. Now what she's going to do is she's straight away going to look at the scene and feel angry, frustrated, resentful, whatever. But she's not going to say anything because she's passive. She doesn't say a thing. She gets on with tidying up, making the dinner, and all the time she's seething inside but not saying anything. And although she says nothing then, it may come out at a later date in terms of shouting about how she's felt about being left to be taken for granted, etc. So after Doormat Dawn comes in aggressive Anna, and aggressive Anna obviously blows a stack, shouting about how dare you sit there doing nothing when I've been working, la la la. I'm sure we can all imagine exactly what she'd be saying and shouting. And immediately they'll become defensive. She is aggressive, the whole atmosphere's gone off, everybody's angry, upset, or as more house, just ignoring her. And the whole atmosphere's gone wrong, the relationships have probably gone wrong for the rest of the evening, and she's not really achieved a solution. In comes Pauline Ann, who is passive-aggressive, and she instead, she's very similar to Doormat Dawn. Obviously, she just gets on with it without saying anything. But the difference with her is that she will let some of that leak out in other non-verbal ways. So there'll be a tension in the kitchen, a bit of slamming of pots and doors and things like that. She probably rushes a cobbled together dinner that nobody particularly likes. She'll be rolling her eyes and tutting, and generally everybody's feeling on edge. But if they ask her how she feels, she'll say, I'm fine. So she'll deny any feelings because she doesn't want to voice them. But in comes the lovely assertive Amy, and what she does is sees what the situation is, feels frustrated and angry, but rather than exploding, she kind of swallows that reaction down a bit, pauses, and then says, look, I've had a really tough, long day. I'm really tired. I'm sure we're all hungry. How about so-and-so cleans up, so-and-so sets the table, and so-and-so helps me cook the dinner. Then we can all eat as quickly as possible. Now, I'm not saying that will get her the outcome that she wants, and with teenagers, probably not. But she is voicing what she wants. She's saying how she feels and voicing what she wants. And that is far more important than the outcome. But can you see all the different communication styles going on and the effects it has on the atmosphere and the relationships there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you hearing in any of that, or what thoughts have you got about assertiveness?
So I think I do different things in different scenarios.
Right.
With different people. I react in different ways.
And family usually gets the...
yeah, the brunt of it, actually.
Can you imagine that situation in the kitchen at all?
So interestingly, yes. And what's also interesting is it's almost, perhaps it's a bit of an energy bank. If I'm in a good place energy wise and things have been okay, I will be the assertive side of things. And if I've had an already shockingly bad day, I'm like, there's no energy left, frankly, I will blow a stack.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah. So I've gone through all of those and gone, yeah, I've done all of those things.
So a lot of it is driven by mindset, isn't it? It's
yes.
that rather than not having the skills or the strategies, it's the tolerance and the patience in any particular mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And how assertive would you say you are, Deborah, generally?
I think people perceive me as being more assertive than I feel.
Right.
But that doesn't answer your question, does it? Reasonably assertive, I think is probably the best way to say it, and would like to be more so.
Okay, great. And do you see yourself going into passive or aggressive at other times?
Yes.
Both or just one or other?
So aggressive with my kids, probably. Not with my husband, interestingly. Probably passive with my husband because I just give up because I expect him to know what I'm thinking.
Right.
Whereas my kids, I feel like, come on, you should actually, I don't want them growing up not caring, and I want them to realise that a lot is done for them. And but in the work environment, just probably more passive at work, or assertive. One of those, not aggressive at work.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Nicola? What are your sort of thoughts on that?
I think, well, it's all quite sort of similar, really. Yeah, I mean, different things at sort of different times. And I think the thing about probably being, passive or assertive at work, you probably, but I do recognise sort of, the whole passive aggressive thing, and and sometimes you just sort of can't be bothered to sort of, assert yourself, so you just sort of, I'll just do this, I'll just do that, and then sometimes you get really cross about it, and then you just start over shouting.
Yes. Yeah.
Match. But it's interesting to sort of have the names on things. I wonder how just sort of giving an explanation of the sort of passive aggressive, the different scenarios, I think is just sort of useful in itself, just sort of, because you're not really aware of, unless you, I mean, obviously you kind of heard these words, but you not necessarily had it put in a scenario. But when you've got it in a scenario, I'm sure sort of now, when I'm sort of doing it or thinking about doing the whole passive aggressive, I might try to be able to sort of stop and try to just sort of say, okay, no, this is what I'm thinking, sort of maybe more clearly.
Yeah.
And calmly.
Right, calmly, yes, that's the important word. And at work, do you tend to be assertive most of the time, or?
I think probably assertive. Sometimes, sort of when there's sort of two directors, and sometimes he'll do what I want and I'll do what he wants, kind of thing. So in that sense, I'll just go along with what he wants, knowing that at some point I'll get kind of something I want, but I don't think I really do passive aggressive at work.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm sort of slightly thinking that I might sometimes tend towards aggressive if, because contractors can be sort of, I actually try not to get shouty with contractors, because I think sort of by the time you've got to that point, you've lost it, you've lost the argument anyway, if you have to lose your temper. Yeah. So I think I maybe did it once a long time ago, and as soon as I did it, I thought, oh, that was just stupid.
Right.
you know, are just sort of, and I've sort of tried not to, like, I haven't tried not to do it since.
Good. Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, that aggressive style doesn't work for you. And there is nothing wrong with being passive if that's a choice you make, that this isn't a battle I particularly want to fight. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay, Marta, and how about you?
I think I'm a bit of everything, but I tend to be quite open. My main issue is like the way I communicate, because it has happened this morning and I'm a bit frustrated about it. But it's like when you're supposed to talk at adult to adult, but I suddenly feel like criticized and attacked.
Right.
So I said, okay, let's stop there. I'm not always doing that. Give me some examples. And suddenly the other person was like, oh my God, you're being so combative. And I was like, what? I was like very frustrated.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and then like I tried to calm down and I was like, okay, this conversation is not gonna go anywhere, so let's move away and talk another day, because I got very emotional because I felt attacked.
Okay, so what was it you'd said that they thought was very combative?
I said, okay, so if you're gonna say I'm always doing that, I give me some examples. You gave me one today and I accept it, but it's because of lack of resources that we were late in submission. Fine. But I was like, don't say that we're always late if you don't have more examples. Give me more examples. And he was like, oh my God, you're looking so defensive and combative. I was like, come on.
Right. So let's I'm going to talk through the structure of assertiveness, and then let's come back to you, Marta, and see whether we can use it on your example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So the basic structure for a assertive statement starts off with facts. So we start off by stating something that either acknowledges what the other person has said, or if we're speaking first, acknowledges a facts of the situation. Because then it's something that they can't argue with. It's something that isn't going to make them defensive because it's facts. And it starts the conversation off well. Going from there, we then want to talk about how we feel or what our opinion is. And to do that, we use I statements. Because I statements, again, avoid the when you did this or you said that, which is complete blame and will make people think, okay, I need to defend that. They'll put them into confrontation. And they'll want to defend, obviously, themselves against something like that. So using words like I believe, I want, I'm disappointed, I disagree with, I felt, any of those sorts of I words means that you're talking about your feelings or your beliefs or your opinions or your ideas. I suggest any of those sorts of I statements are a good way to put across your opinion or idea without going into conflict. Because it sounds like in Marta's example that she went into conflict, she went into defensive because somebody said to her, you're always, oh sorry, I forgot what you said now, Marta. What did you say?
I think you're always, I think it's more about delay, like you're always the problem.
Okay, right. So your department's always the problem. So by them saying you're and you, that is very much likely to trigger a defensiveness and an aggressiveness coming from the other person. So using an I statement there would be much more effective. The third part of the assertive statement then is what you would like to happen. Now, for some assertive statements, you might stop at part 2. There might be nothing that you wanted to happen. It was just you wanted to state your opinion or what you believed or what you felt. So you stop there. But for other ones, you might want to say what you would like to happen now or the way you see going forward. And then the fourth final bit is a check-in, just to check in that the other person is understood and is okay with that. So an example of that would be, and this is maybe appropriate, so imagine you wanted to speak to somebody about their project not being completed on time. So your statement of the facts would be, so we agreed this project would be completed at the end of the month. That's the facts. So the person can't argue with that because, yeah, obviously it was agreed. Then they would say, I'm disappointed that the project hasn't met the deadline. So not, you're late, why are you always late? I'm disappointed that the project hasn't met the deadline. You're still saying the same thing, but you're putting it in an I statement. Then you might like to say something about what you want to happen next. So part 3 would then be, and I'd like to understand what the issues have been that held the project back. So in that way, what you're saying is, it's late, I'm disappointed, tell me why it's late. But you're putting it in a way that's firm and assertive, but not confrontational. And finally, in this example, you could say, do you know the reasons now? Do you have that information with you, or do we need to speak again later? There's the 4 steps there. 1 is that the facts of the situation. 2, my I statement about what I believe or think or want or feel. 3, what I would like to do going forward. And 4, just to check in. So then let's have a look at 1. Everybody happy with that?
Yep.
Yeah, good. Okay, let's have a look at 1 the other way around then. So somebody has challenged you. So step 1, the facts. I understand that you're upset at my decision. Now that's a fact because clearly they've come in and been angry or upset about the decision. So it is a fact. I understand that you're angry, you're upset at my decision. Part 1. Part 2 is what you think, want, suggest, etc. I believe that having considered all the background and evaluation, my decision is correct. So an I believe statement. Then we can move on to part 3. What you're suggesting happens now. So I suggest you take some time to reflect on this and what I've said, and let's arrange another one-to-one next week. And finally then to check in with just, do you agree? Is that a way forward? Do you agree? So starting off with the facts of, I understand that you're upset, should take some of the heat out of the other person because you've acknowledged that they're upset. You've respected and acknowledged them. You've then respected and acknowledged you by saying, I believe that my decision is correct. You've then told them what your suggestion for moving forward is and checked that they're on board with it. Might not like it, but they're on board with it. So can you see how that could potentially turn around somebody that was very angry into a happier situation, not happier, wrong word, into a calmer situation? Yeah?
Sounds incredibly reasonable when you put it.
And incredibly easy to say when you're reading off a piece of paper. Not so easy to do in a moment when somebody stormed into your office unhappy.
Yeah.
But as I said, this is a skill, and the examples I'm giving you are somebody who is a professional cyclist compared to somebody that is just learning to ride a bike.
Mm.
So these are a work towards goal rather than where I would expect you to be now. It does take practice. It does take courage to try out. But the more that you practice it, the easier it does definitely become, the more natural it becomes. And I wouldn't go for all 4 bits at once. I would maybe try 1 or 1 and 2 and just focus on the rest later, but just getting 1 or 2 bits of it right to start with. So Marta, having given you that sort of set process, what could you have said in response to the why is it late? It's always late.
Yeah.
That would have been assertive.
I think more in line of what you say, like, okay, I acknowledge I was late. I know that affect you and your work. These are the reasons why I was late. Let's talk on how it can change, or like how we can do it differently. So I get that. I think to me as well, it was like, yeah, okay, you can be adult and say that, but if they don't respond to your way of talking, then like, I don't know, I'll have a meeting with them tomorrow, so I'll try to be more knowledgeable and be more positive. But it just frustrates me when the other ones attack you, and especially if they are not right.
Yeah.
I don't.
And I think that's one of the issues is when we go aggressively back again, it's because we think it's unfair. It's unfair. They're wrong. I'm right. It's unfair. But the purpose needs to be more about the communication between the two of you and dealing with that assertively rather than being right at this point. So,
Yeah.
like you said, I understand that it was late and that affects you. Great. Then you could say, I believe there are a number of reasons why that is, which we could discuss now or later, something like that. And then you could actually add to that, and I'd like to understand why you think I'm always late. Because to me, that's what set you off, isn't it? It's the always.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
His issue is about this particular project, and he's got himself all wound up and exploded off and used the word always, which wasn't appropriate. So if you could calm them down from where he was to accepting, yeah, this is late, it has affected you, there are some reasons, then you could deal with the always. That would maintain the relationship slightly better.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah?
I'll try that, yeah.
Good. Excellent. Any questions on those steps and that process?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, I just had a question. Like, if you sort of believe that somebody is sort of completely wrong in what they're saying,
Yes.
without being, you just feel that, not being sort of arrogant about it, but you just feel that you completely disagree with what you're saying. Mm-hmm. You just sort of try to acknowledge that they have made that decision and then just contrast it with what you sort of, what you think, what is your sort of truth.
Yeah, so step 1 would be recognizing what they've said and the decision they've made. I recognize that you've decided X. I believe, having considered that Y would be a better option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then how do you go to 3?
Right. If you just wanted to make the point, you could stop there. If you wanted them to change what they've done, you could then ask something around, could we have a discussion putting together the pros and cons and see whether there is a different way of looking at this, or what's the way we could move forward on this? You can turn it back to them is probably my suggestion there.
Yeah.
Again, and say, we've obviously got different opinions on this. I believe in X and you believe in Y. Is there a way forward on this? You don't have to take responsibility for coming up with the suggestion unless you've got one that you really want. You can change it back to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
The thing I would say about assertiveness to remember is that the outcome doesn't determine how assertive you were. So it could be that you are very assertive, but yet you don't get what you want. We tend to think, if I don't get the outcome I wanted, I was obviously rubbish. My assertiveness is no good because look, I haven't got what I wanted. That isn't necessarily the connection. The assertiveness, the importance of it is that you speak up with your truth and with what you believe. You hear yourself saying it, and the other people hear you saying it. It's not a failure if you don't get the outcome you want. I think that connection we assume is an important one to remember. I would be more concerned that you'd spoken up if it was important to you than I would be whether you got what you wanted. That's maybe down to influencing and persuading and all of those other skills, communication skills. This is about getting your voice heard. Yeah? Okay. Yeah. So just some do's and don'ts around assertiveness then. Do's, very much listening to the other person to start with. So listening to make sure you're understanding what they're saying and you aren't reacting to one aspect of it. You can use clarification there if necessary. So you don't have to go straight into number one. You can check for understanding and ask questions to start with and then go into number one. Make sure you respect your opinion if it's something worth being assertive for. So basically, think twice. Is this something I want to speak up for? If it is, then absolutely you need to get your voice heard. Another do is about speaking calmly, taking the urgency and the maybe bluntness out of your tone, making sure your tone of voice and volume are quite calm and that your body language is confident, which is open then, making sure you're open, you're making eye contact, all of these sorts of things to make sure you're coming across as confident. And the final do is to be brief and concise. When you want to make to give a direct, assertive message, you put too much fluff or waffle or reasons around it, it completely dilutes your message. So if you are saying no, or you're saying that's not what I want to do, then don't give 20 reasons as the dog has died, my foot's broken, this has happened and that's happened. You know, stick to one or two important reasons if you want to, or you don't have to give any. The more waffle you put around it, the more you distract the person from the message you're trying to give. Okay. The other don'ts then that I've got are don't apologize. Sorry, but I believe, unless there is specifically something to apologize for, don't apologize. Again, it completely weakens your position and it makes the other person think, oh, I can disregard what she's saying. She's apologizing, it's obviously not important. This is subconscious, they may not do it consciously, but subconsciously they'll see it as less assertive. As I said before, don't blame. Avoid this, you did that, and when you did this, and your fault is. That's only going to damage the relationship. Don't ask for permission. Would you mind if I just had a little word? Something like that, again, weakens what you're going to say. Is it all right if I just speak my mind? Well, of course it's all right. You have the absolute right to speak your mind. So we do that because in general females speak to each other. We're nice and polite and warm and lovely. And that has absolutely got its place, but not when you're trying to make an assertive statement. So keep it out of assertive statements. Don't think that you can guess or control their reaction. If you're assertive, you have respected them and you've respected you. If they choose to get upset by it, that has been their choice, not yours. You can't guess what it's going to be and you can't control it. just remember that you have respected them. So if they choose to react like that, then that's their right as well. And finally, don't feel guilty. That big one that we all hold on to. We think we're being selfish or we've upset them. But again, respecting the other person and acknowledging their point of view, and then respecting yourself and acknowledging your point of view, just means that you haven't been selfish. You have been respectful on both sides. So whatever their reaction is, don't feel guilty because you have been respectful both ways. Okay. So any thoughts on those do's and don'ts? No, everybody happy with that?
Yeah. Again, quite obvious, but I guess in the moment, it's learning it, isn't it? Learning and remembering.
Absolutely, yes. And it is reminding yourself, because you may go into going to be assertive, all of these things, and work takes over. Yeah. An urgent thing comes up and you suddenly are swamped with it and you forget.
I can think quite easily of a couple of people at work that are very good at doing this, and actually it's almost going, fine, I'll try and act like them, and then hopefully it would come.
Yeah. You read my mind, Deborah, there. I was just going to say, my suggestion to you is that you be curious about other people's communication style. Notice what they're doing. How many people are being passive? Who's being aggressive? Who has got this assertiveness going really well? And you'll notice, as you've said, that depending on their mindset or the situation or the discussion or the relationship, it will vary. But notice when they're doing it well, particularly, what is it that's working for them? Not saying you should copy what they do, but you can learn from certain points that they use as to how best to do it. Because you've got to be you, you've got to be authentically you, but you can alter how you do things, how you communicate. And there's a lot to take in on assertiveness. So it's starting in possibly safer or areas where you feel more secure to practice it, like with the husband or something like that, rather than maybe going in with the trickiest person that you've got to talk to straight away, and building it up a bit at a time. So Marta, this situation then you've got with your boss, do you feel comfortable now about having an idea of how you might approach him?
Yeah, no, thanks God what happened today wasn't my boss, but like,
Boss, no.
no, it was another company. Yeah, no, I think it's actually perfect. We did it today, so I go tomorrow fully ready.
Okay. So
but it's this thing of like, I know about it, and when you say it makes sense, but it's really hard to apply, especially when they caught you unprepared.
Very much so, yes. So it's kind of taking that breath before reacting and launching into what you naturally want to say, and just thinking for a moment, okay, so what has this person said? I need to acknowledge what they've said before I move into what I want to say. And that's the biggest thing. Number one, acknowledge what they're saying, even if you totally disagree. Acknowledge it and then say what you want to say.
Yeah.
So imagine you were that person on the other side, and your project work was late. Somebody else's, their project work was late, and it had affected you. How could that person have said it in an assertive way that wouldn't have triggered so much your reaction?
I would say more like talking, like say the state what happened. So now we're late, no? One of the reasons I had is I missed your data. Imagine say, like, let's see how I can help you, and maybe see how we can agree on different timelines or what's the actual issue so it doesn't happen again.
Okay, yeah. So he's saying to you, just give me that statement again. He's saying to you,
of course, I don't remember.
So
he's saying to me, so this time we deliver late, and one of the main issues was I was missing some of your data.
Right. Okay. That's
We
fine.
need to figure out how to I don't know, to understand what the issue is and figure out how to do it differently so it doesn't happen again, or how we can avoid it or reduce the delay.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Yeah, so you're just missing number 2 there, which is how I feel. So he needs to say,
Oh
so
yeah.
you said you're late, and one of the things was missing the data. So then he says how he not feels, but what he believes or what's going on for him, his I statement. What would he say then? Just make something up. What could he say?
Yeah. It affects. Oh, can you say what? Oh, I got frustrated because I couldn't deliver on time.
Yes. Yeah. Perfect. I got frustrated. Yeah. Good. So Nicola, for you, what are the difficult situations for you with assertiveness? Is it this aggressive people again, or? Oh, can't hear you, sorry. Can't hear you, Nicola.
Yeah, sorry, I've just unmuted it.
Right.
Yeah, I think so, and also sometimes I might say choose to be passive, but sometimes, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm not. I'm just kind of doing it, although I'm not happy.
Right. Okay.
So.
Can you think of an example recently at all?
Well, I sort of got an email with some changes to something in it, and I was the changes were okay. It was the sort of tone, the tone of the way it was put, really. So, but I just sort of did the changes and kind of ignored the tone.
Right.
Whereas I probably should have acknowledged the changes and said, kind of got those, that's fine, but I was sort of disappointed with the tone, or I wasn't happy with the sort of tone of it. So I don't know, can we change that in future or something, or can you not sort of just change the tone of it in the future?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Okay. So, using that as a hypothetical, so it's all by email.
That particular scenario was, yeah.
And by email can be tricky, can't it? Because you don't know how people are going to read it the other side.
Yeah. I probably should have sort of picked up the phone and just said what I thought.
Yeah, I think that would in that, or next time you see them face to face or on the email. Yes. So what he said was, I've made the changes. That's fine. But I felt uncomfortable, or I felt.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how. Yeah, I felt sort of. Well, I wasn't sort of happy with the tone. There's sort of no need to put that sort of tone on it, really. It wasn't the end of the world. It was just some minor things. You can pick them up, no problem. You don't have. I thought they were sort of a bit unnecessarily sort of narky about it.
Just saying, I prefer that you used a more positive tone of language, or more positive language when we're discussing these things.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I wouldn't necessarily go on to give parts 3 and 4. You could put part 2 and 3 together and then miss off any more after that. I think when you're commenting on something like that, it doesn't need to have the other bits on the end.
Yeah.
It's enough to say, I didn't like it. Basically, I prefer you didn't talk to me like that in future, or you didn't write in that tone in future.
Yeah, I mean, in other situations, I don't sort of do that all the time. In other situations, I didn't pick up the phone. Again, I did it by email, but I said, we feel you've been sort of X, Y, and Z about that. We don't think it's fair, and we'd like that to stop. Right. And then the other person's response was, "Oh, I think you're being emotional about it," or something. No. And I thought, like, if anyone's being emotional, like they are, because they got all sort of angry and sort of started, on this, I tried to like reply in a real sort of even-handed way, but say, we don't want any more of that. And then I just got the response that I was being emotional, but at that point I sort of left it, because there's no point sort of, you just go on forever backwards and forwards.
But then that's so typical. The minute a woman speaks up about something, she's emotional.
Well, yeah, it was, but it was from another woman.
Oh, well, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And Deborah, what about you? Is there any tough situations particularly that you find being assertive in?
I actually had quite a good example this afternoon where I was in a meeting with about 25 people. We were going through various things, and I had a question, or sort of half question, half suggestion, around how they've been doing some data collection. And I sort of said, is there any reason we're doing something this way? Have you considered consolidating this so it's not done as two separate items?
Yeah.
And someone else, wasn't the person that was hosting the meeting, but someone else sort of chipped up. And it's a woman, and she's very vocal, and she's, what is she, mid-50s, been in industry, thinks she knows it all type of person. And she basically shut me down. This is the way we do it. This is how they recognise it. This is what the client expects, done.
Right.
And I sat there and was sort of like, I knew it wasn't an unreasonable thing I'd asked, because no one else acknowledged or particularly went, oh yeah, maybe we could think about it. I just went, oh, okay.
Right.
Because I'm what am I, a year into the industry, and she's 30 years in industry on this particular type of work. And you kind of go, I'll respect, if that is the case. But what was really interesting was afterwards, I then had a couple of my colleagues, because actually this lady was one of the other advisors first, but a couple of my colleagues come back and go, yeah, totally agree with what you said. I was like, why didn't you say something at the time? So I'm going to ponder how I should have, or my alternative response would have been, which is, well, I don't, in my view, I think actually we could streamline this and it might be more effective, but I recognise that perhaps for wider position, people have their reasons not to do that, and I'll, go with it. But actually it's acknowledging the fact that I still stand by my view and not giving up on it.
And there's a technique there, actually, Deborah.
Yeah.
Helpful for you to ask the question. For the broken record.
Right.
So some people, when you speak assertively, will cut you off sharply like that.
Yeah.
They will take you down a different argument. So you might say, no, I don't think this because of that. And they'll take the because of that and off in a different direction totally.
Right.
Either because they don't want to hear what you've said, or they just naturally do that. And what I suggest you do in that situation is, broken record, go back to what you said and acknowledge again what they've said, and then almost repeat yourself.
Right, okay.
So in that situation, it will be a case of, okay, I understand that this is the way it's always been done, and this is what the clients expect. And then almost repeat what you said again.
Yeah.
And you can probably get away with doing that, doing 2 or 3 lots, but any more than that, you have to walk away. And with her, maybe just one more time was enough.
Yeah.
But that way of doing it, you're basically saying, yeah, get what you said, but I still believe what I'm saying.
Yeah, because I came out of there and part of my reaction was, I felt walked over, and that didn't present as a, you know, whereas actually my intention had been, it was a good one. It was a good point, frankly, and I still believe that anyway. I also came away from thinking I'll find a different way to get this looked at.
Yeah.
So, and maybe it wasn't the best forum, and maybe there's an alternative. So that was my other my other take from it. So.
And it is worth doing that broken record, because you've spoken at once, been cut off unfairly, and by speaking up again, even if you don't get the outcome, I know I keep saying this, but even if you didn't get the outcome at the end, by speaking up again, you have again valued yourself.
Yeah.
And then you might even have got some support.
Yeah.
Because you've said it twice, people maybe then thinking, oh, well, she's tackled and I can join in now.
No, I think I like the idea of, you know, standing by your own statement, and that, yeah, because that in itself, the assertiveness piece actually carries a huge amount of weight, doesn't it?
It does. Absolutely.
From a respect perspective. Yeah, I like that. I really like that.
Yeah, it's as much about respecting yourself as about respecting other people. It's important. Good. Okay. Any other questions or thoughts around assertiveness?
No.
No? Okay. Happy with that?
Yeah.
Good. Well, another good session. Thank you for all your interaction. And tomorrow we are focusing on, where's my list, being visible. Developing your career by being visible, internally and externally in the industry as well. Okay.
Sounds good. So
I shall send you this recording and the links for tomorrow, and then we're already on day 4. Gone really quickly, hasn't it?
Definitely.
Good. Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Speak tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.